The new month's going live.
Well, here we are. Welcome to Mainstream Metaphysics. It's Tuesday night in Los Angeles, and we have been saying that for almost 2 years. Welcome. I'm Nick Newmont. This is my wife, Audrey Newmont.
Hello.
And here on Mainstream Metaphysics, we bring you the best of all things metaphysical, therapeutic, spiritual, and anything that bends the mind. And we've certainly been seeing a lot of mind bending recently. Last week, for those of you that watched the show, we talked a lot about vortexes and things that are going on and fifth dimensional things. And we are going to follow that stream tonight too, and bring it down to more of a personal level. Today, our friend that's up in Portland, she wrote me this crazy text saying, what is going on? It's like the one company did something to her.
This is my wife, Audrey Newmont.
Hello. Another company screwed her over. And she's like, what is going on? And people are asking basically, is it me or whatever? And, part of it also is, and they get them up in Portland, is chemtrails. And we've noticed a lot of people being angry and having like strong emotional reactions to things. And it's not a joke. And I was sitting with someone in session the other day, and the first response was, well, I'm not quite sure about all that conspiracy stuff. And I went, whoa. This is not conspiracy stuff. I said, we're talking about things that have been going on for a long time and is actually now admitted about chemtrails. And I said, first, it was very coyly admitted a while back as cloud seeding, trying to make things change for the weather. And now we know that there is a lot more that goes on, but it's all part of, being affected dimensionally. And it's so weird how dimension sounds like dementia.
Right.
I have to enunciate that very clearly. Dimensionalism, not dementia.
It's interesting when you go back to the root of different words. A lot of the words, it's fascinating.
Sure. And one quick moment on dementia. On Saturday, July 17th, I'm teaching a class that I teach periodically. And this class is for all forms of healers, therapists, alternative practitioners. And the class is called The Psychology of the Chakras. And the reason I developed that class about 5-6 years ago is because there's a lot of people that do alternative healing work in some way, shape, or form. Or like here we have Dr. McGuire, who's an acupuncturist. And alternative healers are not trained in psychology. They're just not. And, you and I are fortunate with our backgrounds of hypnosis. We have a deep background in psychology.
Yeah, we've studied a lot since then as well.
Exactly.
As I look up at all my books up here.
Right. So when it comes to the reason I teach this class is that we've found, and Audrey too, that there are a lot of people who are seeking out alternative energy workers as a replacement or a displacement for, at times, going to a regular doctor, or just downright going to a regular therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a psychotherapist.
I actually had a doctor in my chair today who told somebody that called. It was one of her, I guess, co-doctor people, and she said she was at her psychologist. I'm like, not really, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, people have called me through the years Dr. Newmont. I'm not a doctor. I am a hypnotherapist, but that is a different kind of certification.
Well, while we're on this subject, I just want to interrupt real quick on that subject of doctors and our team of people. We just brought in somebody new, and I was able to. I have a client that has a bit of neuropathy, and this new person that we brought in. I texted them because I do that with our doctors sometimes. Do you help with neuropathy? It was like, actually, yes, I've had a lot of success with it. So it's amazing what different forms, different modalities of healing can do that doctors won't get to as quickly as some of these approaches that we use.
Right, exactly. And these alternative forms are very good and are very helpful. And you and I both have had a lot of success through the years using alternative, let's say holistic doctors, doctors of natural medicine. For years we had our good friend Jeff Sherman, who's an herbalist and had his methods of diagnostics. But the but, comma, is that there are times people need to get help that specializes in that area of their life. And when you, Audrey, how many times have you used the words spiritual bypass? That there are times that people just don't want to do the work. And there are times that you really do need to go to a regular therapist of some kind and work on your development and things that have happened in your life so you can talk that through, work that through, and use whatever tools, whoever that is that you're going to, and it could be Audrey as a hypnotherapist and a spiritual practitioner, or myself as a hypnotherapist. But sometimes it really does involve deeper psychology. Or there's people that I worked with someone that I've known for a long time, did energy work to find out this individual had a health issue come up. And I asked this individual, well, since this happened, did you go to a doctor? And the answer was, well, no. And I asked, are you going to go to a doctor? Well, at some point, yes. And, it's like sometimes things are not nearly as bad or as worse as they could be. And sometimes when you go to somebody who specializes in whatever that is, you can get such peace of mind with, no, this isn't bad at all. This is what this is.
Right.
And I think people are afraid of diagnosis. People are literally afraid of, I don't want to go because I don't know. I'm not sure what they're going to tell me. Well,
I have had that be the case as well. And to be clear, sometimes...
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe. I've had clients before where they have gotten a diagnosis, and I had it happen to myself where I went to a chiropractor and they were showing me my spine and they were going on and on about it. And I literally started to feel sick, remember?
Yes.
And I finally looked at the person because they were like, it could be that you just drive over the wrong bump and it just shatters like crystal. And I'm like, I finally looked at him. I said, just tell me this, is it fixable? Because if it's fixable, then that's all we need to do. You don't need to give me any more scenarios. And I've told many clients over the years that because sometimes we do need to go to a medical doctor.
Right.
It's not that we don't believe in doctors, but we want to try these other approaches first. But if you do go to a doctor and they start saying, well, it could look like this and it could look like that, you're more than able to stop them in their tracks and say, just tell me, is it fixable? And if it is fixable, what do we have to do to fix it? And
True.
not go into the whole fear mongering. And it's like, well, we have to cover our bases to say these are the possibilities in case, because they are practicing. So
Right.
It's important to own your voice, own your word when you're at the doctors, right?
Right. So again, before we get away from this, Hi, Kim, thanks for tuning in. When the class Psychology of the Chakras is Saturday, July 17th, is from 10 to 5. If you'd like more information, you can you can contact me, nnewmont@gmail.com. There's information about it on Meetup, but there's something confusing about the Meetup where it has a price, but also says it's free. It's not free. It's $175 to attend that class.
I thought I fixed that. Meetup can be weird about that. I don't know how to I need to actually call them. Meetup,
Anyway,
messing up.
If you and you can also call the office, the landline here at 818-865-8770 if you'd like more about Psychology of the Chakras and more information coming up, on future classes that we're presenting.
Hey, real quick. Remember I was saying I had a client today with neurological conditions, neuropathy.
Right.
This new person, his name is Ted. How do we pronounce his last name?
don't worry about it at the moment.
Anyway, he wrote back, yes, I have had success with neurological conditions. Then he just now texted, I'm certified in long track nerve entrapment, active release technique, and then mentioned that my client might possibly be diabetic.
Wow.
Which they, I'm sure, don't realize.
All right. So now those of you that have been watching us for a long time, you know that we naturally network. We promote a lot of people. And so our friend Kim Malice introduced us to this man, Ted, who is a Rolfer. And if you're not familiar with Rolfing is a deep tissue massage that will either shorten or elongate the muscles, and especially focuses on the fascia, which is like the glaze covering over the muscle. And both Audrey and I were worked on, and it really is amazing of what you feel immediately.
Right.
Especially if one hip is higher than the other, which means that one leg is longer than the other, stuff in the lymphatics. Because
that's pretty amazing.
Because I've played ball for so many years, I noticed that my strength when I was coaching, to throw a ball, I can't throw it as far. And the amazing thing is he got in there and went into my rotator cuff, and I don't have a torn rotator, or I wouldn't be able to throw at all at that point. But he, went in there and worked on it, and it's amazing how much better this area, where the rotator cuff feels. So, what happens is, you go through time and posture and movement, gets involved, and muscles atrophy. And a lot of people think that when they have soreness, and Ted and I actually talked about this, that you might think that you need to go to the chiropractor. And of course, sometimes you do, but you have to have the muscles worked on properly, because even if you have a spinal adjustment, if the muscles aren't worked on, the atrophy will pull the spine or those whatever disc or whatever vertebrae back out of position. So it's important to have the muscles worked on that. Now, if you are faint of heart, do not have Rolfing done, because it is a deep tissue massage, and it can hurt a little bit. Now, this man, Ted, he's gentle, and he understands that. And Rolfing was named after a woman whose last name was Rolf that developed this technique many years ago. And the old school Rolfers go in there and really believe in no pain, no gain. This gentleman, Ted, he is really great the way he works. And he continues to ask you, how is that? How's that feel? Is it too much? And I have a pretty high threshold of pain. And there's only a couple of times where I just went, whoa, but I said, but you got to do it. You got to work through it. And it's something that your muscles need time to recover. So when that was done last Friday, I worked out on Saturday with our friend Brandon. I should not have worked out, because it just was a little too much for the muscles. So I had to take a few days off. And then later this week, I'll get back to working out again. But Rolfing is fantastic. It really is, especially when you have a pro like that. And he's not a kid. Ted is, he's a mature guy, a little bit younger than me, but he knows his stuff, and he really understands the body and all the parts and all that. And he starts talking about body parts that I have never even heard of.
It was like muscle. A whole foreign language. He's explaining all that stuff to me, and I'm just like, just let me just go into the pain with you. Because when you're we talked to him, he and I talked about resisting pain and actually going with it, and how when you are having a moment of pain, how you can go into it and really make it a lot less painful. I have a whole conscious mind tripping that I did on that about 3-4 weeks ago. So want to know more about how to deal with pain better, check it out over there.
Okay.
Well, are we ever going to get to today's subject?
Yes. So last week we were talking about vortexes and dimensional things and fifth dimension and moving in out of fifth dimension. And so today I was teaching a makeup class to a couple of my advanced students, and brought in someone that needed some work done. And I'm not going to talk about that particular technique, because that would move the the informational in a different direction. But one of the things in this lecture today had to do with working with implants and implant removal. And I'm not talking about the implants that the cosmetic surgeries put in and take out, not those. I'm talking about energetic implants that get into the system. And this is all part of the fifth dimensional aspects of what we get into and what we get out of. And the first thing is identifying an implant. And
what is an implant?
right. So an implant, in general terms, is a formation that is taking up space. An energetic implant is a thought form that has taken up residence in the body. And this is a form of manipulation. And years ago, Merlin described manipulation as altered consciousness. And the simplest form of an implant is referred to as a barb. And a barb looks like an arrowhead. Now, we have cords to each other. In other words, those are little lines of light that show the connection that we have to someone that we love. But when a relationship between two people goes bad, there develops another kind of cord if one person is trying to hold on to another, and that cord is more negatively charged, and it looks somewhat like a tendril, all right? It's not pretty, it's not light. And when there's a cord between two people, that is a moving stream of consciousness between the two individuals, even though one person doesn't want it. And so what happens is a barb will occur if a cord is cut and it's not done right, or an individual abruptly is out of the relationship, which could be a breakup, or it could also be death. But the piece of the cord, if it's not extricated correctly, remains inside down below the chakra. And that barb, that arrowhead, lingers in there and literally takes up residence inside the person. And it begins to fill that area of the body with energy, negative energy, which can cause physical maladies inside the person. And so when we go to work on someone and we do the diagnostics on the aura and the chakras, we use a pendulum to track the movement of the chakra. So a chakra is electromagnetic energy, and it's supposed to be spinning in a clockwise manner. So when you put the pendulum above the chakra, it's going to demonstrate the condition of the chakra, open, closed.
And when you do it and you're holding the pendulum there, you can literally feel it pulling the pendulum. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've had people do it like for fun, just to see how a pendulum works, and it's just fascinating.
Sure. Now, what happens is, and this is what I teach all my students when they're learning how to use a pendulum, that if the pendulum goes over top the chakra and it doesn't spin in any way, shape, or form, in other words, it almost freezes there, that is where we know that there is a barb, or what we call a meridian block. So some of your chakras, 2 through 6, have fronts and backs. And so there is a channel that allows the energy to go through that chakra, through you, through that meridian, and out the back chakra. But if there is a barb that's trapped down in there, blocking that meridian or that tube of energy, then, and I say this, it's kind of funny, imagine if you were drinking a Oreo cookie milkshake or a chocolate chip milkshake, and a piece of the cookie or the chocolate gets into the straw, and you can suck as hard as you want on that straw, but the milkshake is not going to come through. So we have to, and it's funny, I'm talking about that, my stomach's gurgling. So when there is a blockage like that, a meridian block, the energy is not passing. And so in the specialized work that we do, there is a way to send energy down through there and move that blockage out and release it back into the ethers, where that person can open up again. And historically, when I have found barbs in people, they have complained about physical discomforts and wherever that is. So those things are not good. Now, when we talk about implants also, or referring to psychic attacks, there is a superstitious component to human nature where they hear psychic attack and think that somebody is doing something malicious. And it's not necessarily the case. Sometimes an implant is something that just gets into the auric field as we are passing through dimensions. Like it could be in the dream state when you're in an altered consciousness, or you're doing energy work, or you pass through a vortexal field of some kind, and something can get in there. Now, that's not malicious. So the way I want you to think of those kinds of implants are like a computer virus. You logged on to something, and there's all kinds of things out there, cookies and all kinds of things in the computer, and sometimes something will latch on. Let's just call it a tracking. It tracks, okay? Then, with your antivirus or someone that does, that kind of work, they'll go in and clean that out. So again, some of those implants that get in, or some of those attacks, they're not malicious. They just get into the system. But like a computer virus, that will alter the performance of your computer. Well, when we get those things in, and again, your chakras are thought containers. When you get a virus into your chakra, it can shift the thinking a bit, and that can throw people off. And people will say that, well, I haven't felt right, and my memory isn't right, and all that kind of stuff. So we have to be cognizant of, if you notice over a number of days where you don't seem right, you do want to check yourself, because maybe something,
or a number of weeks, like I had been discussing last time.
Right, exactly. And then there's what's called an elemental implant, that a thought form that grows on itself, and this can come from within the individual, or it could come from the outside. Like, for instance, fear of the dark can lead to other fears based on connected real life circumstances. And again, a fear is something that is in your head, but it's phobic. It's based on real life experiences. And all this stuff we will talk about in Psychology of the Chakras. But when we talk about negative thoughts in the chakras as blocking them, we have a tendency to think about either what we're thinking about, or maybe what someone else has done. But what we have to put a lot of focus and attention on, and this is, an area that you look at a lot, Audrey, is the first 8 and then second 7 years of development, which is otherwise known as parental conditioning.
Right.
And just because me, we're raised with well-intended parents, that isn't necessarily our truth. And you could be conditioned or reconditioned out of where your talents are.
I want to bring up something about that real quick, because I've had a few clients lately, and it's something important. It's like when we're in session and we're looking at the different ideas of why we would be what we are, why we have, like, for instance, I was working with somebody today that has some serious challenges with their ideas around health. We'll just leave it at that. And then they have some other things going on as well. So, it was a lot to move the conversation into what could have happened in those years between 0 and 8. And there was a part of it where they were like, well, my childhood was just normal. It was good. And then I start asking a little bit more, and we start looking a little bit more, and it's like, well, I don't want to talk badly about anybody. I don't want to say anything bad. And it's like, there's a lot of protecting, because it's supposedly wrong, whatever somebody had happened in their childhood, whether it was with the parents themselves or any other caregivers or siblings. And so there's a part of it where you really want to take out that idea of that it was wrong or something bad in the childhood, and you look at it just simply as it just was what it was. There's nothing right, wrong, good, bad. It's just this happened to you. So as an example, I had a woman that I worked with years ago who had issues with claustrophobia. And then we're in the conversation, we're looking at things, and come to find out they were playing hide and seek. And she went into a toy chest and got locked in there, and nobody found her for the longest time. So then here is this experience in the 0 to 8. Before you know it, she's claustrophobic. So when you're looking at these things, it's not to say that your parents did anything wrong. They're just being parents. And like Nick and I are parents, we screw up all the time.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. We do stuff and I'm like, sorry, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that. And, everybody's just doing what they do. But when you're a adult, and I think anything after 21, you have to take responsibility for yourself. So that's when you start investigating, what are these beliefs? What's stuck in the chakras? What the hell got implanted, way back when? So then you're able to, without any judgment, you're just going for compassion and understanding, so that you're not being, claustrophobic or agoraphobic, or, what is it when you're a hypochondriac or something like that. I mean, it's like there's all these reasons for what we do. We don't come out of the womb that way. And so you're looking to see, what's the implant? What did I take on here?
And one other thing, when it comes to raising children, and to just add something in there, just because if you have several children, just because this worked for that one, the next one comes along, it doesn't mean that approach is going to work for that one. Right. And vice versa. And then the third one comes along, and then you have to look at, well, this is all well-meaning and well-intended, but this doesn't work for this one.
And then you have a grandkid, and then there's a whole nother thing going on. And it's like, seriously. Right. So you're continuously realigning, and you're continuously learning how to be in a more powerful way.
Right. By the way, in our viewers, there's Audie. Happy birthday, Audie.
Hey, it's Audie's birthday. I haven't gotten to that yet. Happy birthday to you, Audie. We love you.
Anyway, enjoy. So, all of this goes into the chakras. Your chakras are thought containers, and they're also feeling containers, experiences with emotions and traumas. That all goes in there.
And I want to say something else too. When I'm working with clients, sometimes it's so deep what they have going on that, like, for instance, I was working with somebody this morning, and they've got some really deep embedded things. And this person has been really just moving up and doing really well. And then there's this, and then, so I told them to go to Nick, because he can get into those thought containers, and he can clear out stuff that is just too hard to look at, so he and I work together as a team a lot in something like that, because sometimes it's just very deep. It just is.
Exactly. And when we're talking about, implants can be mobile. Implants can have consciousness. So when we're talking to this point about something being in a chakra, okay, there are such things called mobile implants, and you may not, as a healer, you may not see it right away. And then all of a sudden you'll look over there and you see something in the auric body that it looks like a little Sputnik, little satellite that's in there. But it does take up residence in the aura and has an effect on the electromagnetics of the auric body. And there are crystals that we have and techniques for anchoring those things so that we can take them out. And good healers know how to do that.
Kirby says he's watching us on the big screen. Just saying.
That's
Hi,
funny.
Kirby. We didn't see you in there.
So you can see all the
on
wrinkles.
On the big screen. Hi. We'll get up close for you.
Jeez. Let's not scare them. Okay. Thank you. Funny. Anyway, thanks for letting us know. So there are so many different things that we can work with. Now, when you had, and other people have had, these experiences where you seem to have walked through a location and something seems to be altered. First of all, the environment looks different every time you go there. This means that something with parallels and dimensions is moving and changing. And your experience with it, and I mean you, Audrey, your experience with that will be different every time, because where that is changing. And it's not just changing visually, it's changing energetically too. So you have to pay attention to how it feels. And also, any dimensional portals like that can grow too. So where you may have had to gone like into one of those caves at the beach, it could be that you're 20 feet away from it and you can feel it, because portals can move, and it may not just be in that spot. It could be over here. Now, here's the other thing, which makes all of us crazy. When there is a concentration of energy that creates a vortex, those things grow because they become like, as they spin, kind of like tornadoes. They pick up energy. And as we said last week, the beaches in California, that sand is silicate, and quartz crystals, that's silicon dioxide. So quartz is an amplifier. So will those vortexes and portals get bigger, or do they multiply on themselves? Yes. And we have to just be very aware and very cognizant of where we're going, what we're doing. And if the energy feels weird, then get out of that.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of people that seek out places on the planet that are loaded with vortexes, and they like that experience of almost lifting off the ground.
Like Sedona, Arizona.
But I'll tell you, the first time I went to Sedona in the early 90s, and found out later on that they had closed for a long time. Airport vortex.
Mm-hmm.
I was there. That was one of the ones I was at. And I put my hands on the ground to really let that energy come up into me. And the headache that I got. And then after the fact, they realized that airport vortex was not vibrating the way it should. Now, one thing that was pretty crazy is when I went to that vortex, and anyone that's been there knows this, it's sort of at a ledge, so to speak. And when I was sitting there, there was this funnel of wind that was hitting me. And I looked around at the trees, not a leaf was moving. It wasn't energy, it was wind that was coming at me, and nothing was being affected. So I was really in the center of that vortex.
Wow.
Experiencing elemental energy as air. It was the air. If it had been next to water, there might have been those whirlpools in the water.
That's fascinating.
So yeah, it was a pretty cool experience, but it took me hours to get rid of that headache because I had really absorbed, a lot of that energy that actually wasn't grounded properly. So anyway, there's a lot of fascinating things, but when people are reporting in that, people are misbehaving or behaving out of character, we have to take a step back and look at that behavior. Now, when we do the class on psychology of the chakras, one of the things we learn is for people that can feel and see auras, the specialized conditions that the aura takes on when there are personality disorders, if there is schizophrenia or certain neuroses or psychoses, your aura shows that. And instead of the aura being so beautiful and clear, it takes on looks like, for those of us that have been on the planet for a while, old televisions where you relied on rabbit ears and there were distortions in the picture, whether the wavy lines or ghosting, all of these things come into play and how the aura is affected. And then, of course, when your aura gets affected, your chakras, your energy centers get displaced. And when you lose some intention, when you're kind of like going with the flow of everything, you're not as intentional, your hara line, your line of light, begins to warp and move, which distorts the positioning of the chakras. It's just like, those of you that have satellite dishes, DirecTV, dish, whatever, and if there's a bad storm, the wind can actually move the positioning of your satellite dish on your roof.
Yeah.
And then that's got to be fixed, or if the storm stops, sometimes it fixes itself. but every once in a while those things can be displaced a little bit. Well, that's what happens to our chakras, because the way the chakras come away from us, those chakras are receivers and transmitters. They are satellite dishes to some degree. In fact, if anything, quite frankly, satellite dishes are chakras. Chakras been around since the beginning of time, since there's been humans. Satellite dishes were invented in, our modern era in the 20th century.
As you're talking about all of this, I'm remembering, it sounds kind of like with all of this as, we're talking about astral travel, we're talking about time travel on a level, we're talking about some things that sound a little, I don't know, kind of far-fetched.
Right.
In reality, our military has been using these things for a very long time. They've had people in the military that they're using to do when you're here and you're going and viewing over here, remote viewing.
Yeah.
And they also have people in the military that they specialize. They take some of these people who are like SEALs and different things like that, and they really train them to do the kind of things that we're doing in a whole nother way. So it's not that, this is just here that we would do this here, or all the people that we know that are, of the same kind of practices, but our military does this. I mean, our government does it. So it's very interesting. I think that was one of the interesting things that I learned along the way. And, it makes it maybe a little bit more credible. Julie Porter. Hello, Miss Porter.
She's asking a question. If a portal or vortex changes, how does that affect you if you're in it when it changes? Well, it creates different awareness. A good question, Julie. It creates different awarenesses, and it's just like changing channels on your TV. It's going to alter positioning, because you as a soul body, we are a physicality, but we are a soul with abilities to go beyond, and that's what metaphysical means, to go beyond the physical. So if you're in a vortex and it changes, then you're going to have some realizations that something different. Now, you may not be able to put your finger on it, but you're going to know that something has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have a momentarily consciousness glitch, like something happens, like, did I just lose time? And a lot of people are talking about that more and more.
Yeah.
As like losing time. Like they're here, then they're here, but they don't know how they got from here to here.
Yeah. And I think it's important to say what we said last week again, because this is a whole nother show. When we're talking about this moving and being in the fifth dimension, there is an aspect to it where all of these more metaphysical things that are not the concrete things, life things, it's like we're much more connected to that. It's like when I'm using the car analogy with my clients, I'll tell them, so we're here in this car now. So there's this driver, the soul, and I'm literally here with you all now driving my car, and you're here watching, and you're in the present moment as you. Then we have our little child in the back seat, and that's the one that gets angry and frustrated and has all the fear feelings, and that's the person that we want to learn from, and that's the person that we want to be the adult for, and let them know, we're running the ship now, we're driving the car now, and we're all right. But then there's the other part of it where there is that higher part of us, that greater part of us that is connected to the all that is. And at this point in time, it's like the windows are all down, and we're getting a big wave of us. We're getting a big ability to connect easier than we've ever been able to connect before, and go deeper than we've ever been able to connect before. And for some people, it can be a little, I've had many clients over the years that don't really understand. They've never been educated, or they just don't know anything about what all of this means. And there's a part of them, they come in and they're like, I just don't feel right. I'm not grounded or whatever this is.
Right.
And so it's a part of understanding that greater part of you, that higher part, and knowing that this is a moment where we're all in an ability to connect deeper and richer. I don't even know how to say it, because it's not something that you actually can put words to. You just be it. Does that make sense?
Yep, it sure does.
What is going on over there that
Well,
you're looking at?
Julie was saying that she had that happen in Sedona. They were meditating on a vortex, and there was a small time lapse. Yeah, that's very common there. And also in Sedona, you go outside at night, there's a lot of UFO activity in Sedona.
That's right.
So, it's Sedona is very rich in metaphysical and quantum physical events that take place there. And I remember one time I went there, and I was these people had me come to their house, and they hired me for a couple of days to do readings, and they put me up in one of their spare bedrooms, and they were very close to the rocks where their house was. And I remember, in the middle of the night, realizing that, I was like going up off the bed. And
what kind of drinking were you doing that night?
None whatsoever. Nope, that's Sedona. And an awakening in the middle of the night and looking at the foot of the bed, and there was this, I think those are Hopi Indians there, seeing this woman standing at the foot of my bed just looking at me, and it's spirit. So yeah, Sedona is very rich in everything non-physical.
Be interesting. Write in the comments if you've ever had an experience where there is somebody that's at the end of your bed, or you wake up and there's something, somebody there, an apparition. That's what it's, an apparition, right? Yeah. Like I had a client, we talked about it in last week's show, and she woke up and there was a man at the end of the bed, and then he just vanished. And this is not somebody who would say that just lightly. So it's just fascinating.
So as we're having more fifth dimensional connections, these openings like this are going to happen more frequently. Now, for those of you that have had energy work with me, I engineer into the fifth dimension. So it's very normal and common for me to travel between third and fifth dimension several times a day. I have frequent flyer miles. And so I'm used to it. But when people have an energy session with me, once or twice a year, you're just not thinking about being somewhere, and all of a sudden there's this strange shift or like an uplift or an updraft, and it's like, what just happened? Or losing time. But look, time is easily manipulated. I've talked before on the show when there's times I've had to do things, or get things done in a certain amount of time, and I've completely detached from the time and just focused on the tasks at hand, which involved driving in a car and going to different places, and then coming to realize when I came back into time that like about 20 minutes had passed, when to do everything that I did, about 45 minutes should have passed.
Right.
And it's like, how did I do that? Especially since I was driving a car. And so when you take yourself into fourth dimension and fifth dimension, you supersede physical obstacles.
I remember that thing about time when I first started at Agape. I was like, I don't have time. I don't have time for all this stuff. And they'd look at me and they'd say, you're literally kind of creating that. And I kept thinking, you don't understand. I'm a single mother. I've got this full-time job. I've got all this stuff that I do. I don't have time. They're like, yeah, yes, you do. And I realized I kept saying, I don't have time. And then when I switched it to, I have all the time in the world to do what I need to do, everything changed. It was like one of those really great belief systems that got switched out.
Well, people have been saying that I don't have enough time more frequently. And Merlin in the last year addressed that and said, when you continue to say, I don't have enough time, you're literally shortening your lifespan.
Right.
So stop saying that, because it's not good. You only have so much time on the planet as it is.
Right.
So yes, do affirm. I have all the time in the world.
Hi, Cheryl Vassar. Oh, Audie looks at them and just goes right back to sleep.
It's kind of whatever. Well, I remember years ago, I was sleeping and a spirit got in bed with me, like spooning. And I go, and I just went, what? I'm trying to sleep. Stop. I did.
This was before we were married.
Oh, that was 92 in there. Yeah. But see, for me, in the 90, especially 1990 and 91, that's when my life went through a lot of changes. Prior marriage ending, long career ending.
Mm-hmm.
And I was meeting all these people that were very spiritual or very metaphysical, and began the process of me opening up and embracing the abilities that would come and go, in my life, and everything just exploded then. And so when you become this filament of energy, this beam of light, spirits see that. Well, what's that? They become very interested. So they want to hang out with you. I just don't, they're not supposed to crawl in bed. So it's just like, no, leave me alone.
Most people would have gone running from the room. You're like,
in all the years I've done house blessings and all that stuff, I've said humans actually are more scary than spirits.
Right.
Spirits are well-meaning. And look, there's only a couple times in all the years that have I gone to places or worked on places where it would be what the general public would consider scary. Like, for instance, when I went to the house that's referred to the house at the end of the drive, and that is, for those of you that live in California, in Beverly Hills, up Cielo Drive, which is off of Benedict Canyon, and then up in there's a house where the Manson murders were committed. But that house where that happened, that was torn down, leveled, and a new house was built. But all those spirits that were there were displaced and went to this other house that's on the same street. And this house is the Disneyland of haunted houses. And I've been there, I experienced it, and I've watched, the cameras that they've run at night, and you can see all these black shadowy things going, back and forth in front of the camera. I mean, it's the real deal. And it's not for the faint of heart, what's in that house. But I've had some interesting experiences in doing that work, and spirits and all that. That's working in the other dimension. Now, when we were going back to our original topic, when we're talking about implants, things like that, there is such a thing. The highest version of an implant or something getting into is a takeover, a possession, that kind of thing, where a spirit really does get in. And I have done exorcisms on people, and that is very complex, because, again, for those of you that have the energy work with me, it's not just the invocations to create the fifth dimension, but for those of you that understand how we do a house blessing, which is via the Pentagram Ritual, you're in on the table and opening everything up, to fifth dimension, but a brief pentagram ritual is done within that. So it's a ritual within a ritual to create this pillar of light that pulls that being that really doesn't want to be there anyway up and out.
I want to mention something about that, because I think it's super important for people to understand. People hear the word pentagram and they think it's evil. They think it's bad.
Right.
There are a lot of people that really are misinformed. So there is evil, and then there is what we do. And ours has intention behind it for the best and highest.
Well, the symbolism, ancient symbolism, has been around a long time because it's ancient. And so the 5-pointed star, the pentagram, is actually a very evolved, very holy thing. But a lot of times people take them and turn them upside down, which has to do with man just tempted into his physical realm. But when people talk about the 4 elements, air, earth, fire, and water, those are associated with the four main archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. However, what people don't realize, and this is where the Pentagram Ritual comes into play, there is a fifth element and a fifth angel. That's really important. The fifth element is ether or spirit, and that fifth angel is Metatron, who sees over, the element of spirit. And that's what the pentagram represents. The five archangels, not the four archangels. Like, for instance, people in Christianity and Catholicism, when they see the symbol, the cross, immediately that goes to Christ being crucified. That isn't that. The cross is actually the representation of the four archangels that I just talked about, Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. And they are called in the energy work that I do and in the Pentagram Ritual. And that ritual is an ancient Judeo-Christian pagan rite that's been around for thousands of years and is the highest form of invoking energy and pillars of light to extricate a spirit from a premises.
But I think it's important to recognize this right now, because there is a lot of talk of evil or Satan,
right,
or satanic and different things like that. I mean, there is a very large conversation around that right now.
Right.
And it's really important to discern the difference between what we do and what that is.
Well,
we're nowhere near that.
And by the word Satan in Arabic means crazy thought, not demon or anything like that. People just have to do their homework a bit more. And when it comes to house blessings and clearings, I get more and more requests for that all the time.
Right.
And I'm going to get a lot more of those requests because of the dimensional shifts and spirits moving in and out. And
so if you have the heebie-jeebies in your home, if you've got things that are moving around and you don't want them there,
who are you going to call?
Nick Newbutt.
That's right. And I don't come in with nuclear backpacks and do that. It's done in a very organized, ritualistic way. And it, depending on the size of your home, it takes hours to do those. They are exhausting.
I actually helped him with one not too long ago. It
Right.
was a celebrity client, and I had not done one for a long time, and it was fascinating. It was a 3-story home, and as we're going up to the 4th floor, so you have to do each floor individually, and there's a whole process, and it's like you're moving energy the whole time. And like when we first got there, we were just checking out the home and just looking at things. And I went into this one room, and it was like, you could feel it. There was just something in the room. And I mentioned it to the people, and it was, yes, that was going on there. And so I don't usually do these things. So for me, it was kind of like, I'm just helping, but it was very much as we're coming up that last flight of stairs, there was just this wave of energy that came over me, and it was just like, wow. And you could just feel it, and we're like moving this stuff. So it's fascinating, because most people, we don't think about like the space between us. Like, you're watching this now, and there's nothing between us. And many of you are watching it live, or you'll be watching it later. And either way around it, there's nothing connecting all of this. It's all electromagnetic currents. It's a whole field of intelligence. So when we're doing that kind of work, and I say we're like pushing this energy, and I'm feeling all of this, it's fascinating. And I think that as we are moving into this 5th dimension, if you find yourself for no reason starting to feel something or sensing something, pay attention to it. You're becoming more tuned in. We're all becoming more tuned in. And it's I think super important to learn what all of this is. It's a part of us.
Right. And by the way, for a couple minutes ago, you did hear Audrey right. She said that we blessed a 3-story home, but we went to the 4th floor. She did say that.
All right, we were going up to the last floor, and it was. I almost started crying. I mean, there was this like massive wave of emotion that was going on in the home, and it was just fascinating. And
then in the end, after we send the residents out so we can do the work, because there is quite the explosion of energy. And then when they come back and we've done all the work, then we do sit with the people and tell them what we found, and we give them recommendations of what to do and so on and so forth. And they paid a lot of attention to what we had to say.
Yeah.
So it's really as we do quote unquote healings on people, we do healings on the house too. And you can feel in a house what's really cool, and any of you watching, there's a spot in your house that's called the heart of the house. And it's sort of like the pulse of the house. And what I tell people is once we locate the heart of the house, I tell them, don't ever remodel or don't ever do anything that would cause demolition where the heart is, because that will destroy the energy of the house. And there was a job that Audrey and all the students we did way back, remember, in Beverly Hills.
Oh, yeah.
And what happened was that this one staircase was the heart of the house, and they did a remodel, and they tore that staircase out, and they moved the staircase to another location. And when they went to sell the house, it took them like a year to sell it. And because the house had no heart, the house was just basically sterilized. So recognizing the heart of the house and what that is, it's really important to maintain that.
Right.
So it's a lot. So yes, everything metaphysical. we have a lot of, incredible stories to tell on what we've experienced. When you're younger and you get into this, everything is theory and you're learning and you have your experiences. But when you've been doing this stuff as long as we have, it's like a book of anecdotes of the experiences that we've gone through. And the cool thing is, with experiences, as you mature and as you create your materials, whether it's mine or Audrey's, it's not just the theory behind it. Your own experiences help write the material.
Right.
Because, and it's, as all these years I've been an astrologer. Well, when people have certain events happen at certain ages, I couldn't speak of those events when I was doing this at age 38, 37, 39,
Mm-hmm.
But now at my age, I've experienced these important events that happen as life goes on. So I'm not just talking as an advisor about what it is in theory. A lot of times I'm saying that I've been through this, and a lot of clients I have handled it this way, some handled it this way. And so we can really speak from the heart. And, when I was a lot younger, I wanted to be a lot busier, and you have to earn that. And now, it's really cool to be this age and people coming because there is so much experience.
And now you're busy and you're like, I'd like to be less busy.
I'm not going to affirm that.
I'm teasing.
No, I'm not coaching softball again until school starts. That's less busy. Really do.
You do.
And
it's more the softball season. That just gets you way, way, way too busy.
Yeah, but you know what, folks? In life, there's no such thing as too busy. As long as you have a balance in your life and you're eating right, you're getting your rest, you get exercise, and you're with the people that you love, there's no too busy.
Yeah.
And the cool thing for Audrey and myself, we work at different times and she'll come in at times when no one's here and do work. I'll come in another time when no one's here. So we balance things off,
Yeah.
where we're not crowded on top of each other. In fact, the other day, Monday, I came in to work, and it was fascinating because you weren't here. Dr. McGuire wasn't here. And it was like really quiet, to have just myself in here.
I was busy babysitting little people.
Right. This is a big space.
Hey, we're running out of time here.
We are.
Speaking
so
of time.
Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and these conversations about fifth dimensionalism. This is not done. This is a topic that's going to come up on the show more and more.
Yeah.
And for those of you that watch us, type in, on the Facebook page, and let us know what you're experiencing, because, as you have your experience, we can also give you feedback and help other people go through this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're walking along and all of a sudden your feet are 5 feet off the ground, just say, hey, put me down. No, it doesn't get that extreme, but you do have to be grounded, conscious, focused, and centered on who you are and what you're doing. That's really important.
Yes.
Yep. And don't be afraid of it, because this is an occurrence that was meant to happen. It's part of the Aquarian age, and it's going to accelerate our evolution of consciousness. We do need this to happen because it's going to help us bypass all the third dimensional crap that has bogged us down for the past 2,000 years. It really will. We're going to move into realms that we haven't even imagined yet of what we're going to be able to do.
Yay.
And we look forward to it. It's a fascinating time to be on the planet, folks. It really is.
As our time is getting done, on Thursday, meet me at Facebook again, and I'm going to be live on YouTube, I think, if I can figure out that technology just right. And it's at 7 o'clock. I have a very interesting subject for you. So tune in and keep me company.
Right. Thank you. Thank you all for watching. We appreciate you and those of you that write in. And Audrey will be here on Thursday. Audrey and I will be back next Tuesday night here on Mainstream Metaphysics. As always, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.
Yes, and share this with your friends too. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Ding.
Okay, so what do I do?
Ding.